Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Freebeat, where I post new music-related content every single day. So if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Let's get started. I've had my Teenage Engineering OPZ for a little under a year, so I feel like I'm finally qualified to let you guys know if it's worth it in 2020. Now, if you're looking for the short answer, yes, this thing is worth it, more so now than ever. In 2020, there's been some amazing updates to this thing, and it is fully worth the price. So if you are on the fence about it or anything like that, and you're just looking for something to push you over the edge and get it. You won't be disappointed, I promise. But for everyone else who wants me to dive in a little further, let's go. Now, if you don't know what the OPZ is, it is a product from Teenage Engineering in Sweden. It is about the size of a TV remote, and at its core, it is a very, very powerful sequencer. However, it's also a synthesizer, a drum machine, a sampler. It's a microphone. It is a DMX light track controller, and it's also a Unity graphics engine controller, although admittedly, I don't know how that one works. It doesn't have a screen. You can use your phone as a screen. And actually, if you take off the back here, it comes with a little cell phone holder. So you can use the screen if you'd like, you can use your phone. However, you don't need to use the phone with it. Also on the back is an expansion port, and they have modules you can put in here. Right now there are currently two available. One is a MIDI and CV and sync module, and one is a kind of a rumble pack, a silent metronome, if you will. And with the first expansion module, you get 4 new ports right there. Speaking of ports, we have USB Type-C, as well as a 3.5mm audio out. It also has a little built-in speaker, but it's not very good. Now, it is an expensive little device. This guy runs $599 in the US, and at first it seems pretty steep. But when you look at what this thing can do, in the form factor that it is, it's pretty mind-blowing, and I think more than worth it, especially now after, like I said, there's been quite a few updates. So the reason I love this thing, it really boils down into 5 basic topics. The form factor, the workflow and how you get things done on here, how it handles projects, the depth of which you can get into the sequencer, and sound design, honestly, now with some updates. And speaking of updates, the last one is Teenage Engineering's commitment to this thing. They have cranked out a lot of content and made the OPZ a much better device than when it launched in 2018, I believe. So let's talk about workflow first. It's very cool. You basically have a set of navigation buttons up here. You have project, mixer, metronome, and then the screen button. This whole thing is navigated with combinations of button presses. So if you don't have the screen, you do have to memorize a lot. But once you get it down, this is probably the fastest device to work on that I have ever used. You have a track button, and you have tracks for kick, snare, hi-hat, random samples, bass, lead, arpeggio, and chord. Those are all of your sound tracks. And then you have 2 effect sends, a tape track where you can kind of have this resampling effect, a master track where you can transpose. There's a performance track with a whole bunch of pocket operator style punch-in effects. There is a track for the module, a lighting track, and a video track. And the way you jump between them is very cool. You have a 16-step grid up here, and you can hold the track button. Each one of these icons here represents the track. So to go to kick track, we'd hold track, press the kick button. Then all of these would be kick sounds. We can manipulate all sorts of parameters, 16 parameters on each sound by scrolling through pages of the knobs here with the shift key. And then you simply input them into your 16-step grid. Or you can play them in real time as well with the record button. And that, I think, is where the power of the sequencer really shows, because you can get like micro timing. You don't have to be right on the dot. You can play it out of time and have it sound very bad, but you have that option. And there is a quantize feature as well. Lots of different key combinations and shortcuts, copy, paste, all that kind of stuff. You can almost think of this as a miniature DAW. So the workflow really speaks to me. You go pattern by pattern in your projects. And speaking of projects, that is reason number 2 for me on why this thing is so worth it. So you can store up to 10 different projects or songs. A project can contain up to 16 different patterns, much like a pocket operator. However, unlike a pocket operator, these patterns can be anywhere from 1 measure long to 8 measures long. So you could have a song that is 16 patterns, and each of those patterns is 8 measures. Now, it might not sound like a lot, but that is a lot of music, especially, when you consider repeating stuff. And then you can get even further in depth and add things called step components, but we'll get into those later. But it's really cool how they handle it. So you hold the project button to switch between your projects, your songs. You have these 10 keys here, the black keys on the keyboard, and you just simply select it. And then let's say I go to song or project 4, then each one of these patterns will light up, and these are my 16 different patterns. So project 4, pattern 2, right there. It's as easy as that. It's really cool, and it allows it to be a complete performance device. You can bring a 10-track set with you, which is just awesome. And I really like it. I've got pretty crazy ADHD, so I'll be working on a project, let's say I'm working on project 2, and then all of a sudden I want to skip and start something fresh. I can just open up a new blank project and start there, save my work on project 2, go back to it later. So that really helps me out. I enjoy that quite a bit. So next up is the depth of which the sequencer goes. And I touched on this a little bit, but you can get way in between the beats. Way in between the beats. Like, I think it's down to the 64th, which is really, really cool. And especially for someone who's really into prog music, I really enjoy that. You can have odd time signatures all over the place. You can have, all sorts of little tweaks to your patterns that can really make them stand out like that, different things. I really enjoy the ability that you aren't just stuck with 1 measure long pattern, 4 measure long pattern, and 8. You could have a 7 measure long pattern in 7/4 if you want. You could have 2 measures of 4/4 followed by a measure of 13/16. It's amazing the flexibility that they have fit into this device. It's very cool. Then we have step components, which I talked about a little bit earlier. There are a variety of different step components that basically affect an individual step on the sequencer. And there are some pretty cool ones. There are simple ones where it just doubles whatever's on that step. But then there are ones where it completely will dodge a note. It'll skip a note. So if you're building a drum track, you can have it only play a little snare drum fill every 4 times. But you're still on the same pattern. So you could have one pattern that acts like it's 16 measures long. If you had an 8 measure pattern and only told it to play the fill on the 4th time, that would feel like it was 32 measures long. It is just amazing, the flexibility and the programmability that you fit in here. And again, this whole time you could have your phone Bluetoothed with a screen on it so you could actually see what you were doing if you don't have the time to memorize it. There's 2 effect tracks, and I believe there's 5 different effects engines right now, and Teenage Engineering has said they're going to expand those. Each of the synth sounds has, I believe, 5 or 6 different engines right now. Teenage Engineering is constantly cranking out new effects engines. They are very cool. They just dropped an organ that I really enjoy. I use it on the chord track all the time. It has parameter locks too, so you can hold record and drop in a filter sweep on whatever you want. All the standard stuff that you'd expect from a synthesizer is there. I'd consider this kind of in the realm of analog modeling. Of course, it's all digital, but some of the synth engines are pretty good, and there's a lot of people out there that have a much better understanding of them than I do that have videos on YouTube, and I suggest you look those up. Cuckoo has an amazing video on this. Jeremy from Red Means Recording has a bunch of great videos on this guy as well. Whales Have Teeth also has some sweet videos. But yeah, the depth that you can get is just ridiculous for a device this small, which brings us to the next reason why this thing rocks, and that is the portability. This is it. This is as big as it is. I mean, these are my hands. The camera doesn't do justice to how small this thing actually is. When I first got it in the mail, I was absolutely blown away at how small it was. It's literally a TV remote. The size, pick up your TV remote and maybe add a 1/4 inch wider, and that's it. I mean, we can pull the camera out here, see my messy desk, but that's it. Here it is compared to my cell phone. This is a Google Pixel 2. I mean, that's absolutely wild. It is so portable. And you can take this anywhere and jam with it. All you need is a pair of headphones and you are good to go. I've had this on the train. I've had this on the airplane. I've had this in Disneyland with me. It's just amazing. The power compared to the size. There's nothing else like it. And I think that the size is really what sells this for me. The size And the next reason, the final reason, which is teenage engineering's commitment to updates. When this thing started, it didn't have sampling. It didn't have a lot of the features that it has now, such as the ability to use the LFO on the effects track. That wasn't there. You can now turn off the arpeggio track and use that basically as another lead track, which is really cool. The sampling update just completely blew this thing wide open. So you can sample via the mic, you can sample via the line in, or USB. You can load your own samples on there, of course. You can load your own synth tracks on here and synth engines, which is really, really nice. I have like a grand piano on here and some really realistic sounding orchestral stuff that I like to use a lot. You know, in this track here, the random percussion sample track, I've got a vibraphone, I've got a marimba, and it's insane how much sampling affected this thing and made it into a worthwhile investment. But they're not done. That's what's cool. They've only released 2 expansion modules, and while they are a bit on the pricey side, I think we're going to see several more before they end that venture. They just seem really, really committed to this thing, and I think that is awesome. So I am going to give one piece of advice to anyone who picks up an OPZ. Spend time with it. You need to learn it. You need to memorize at least the basic button combinations and what they do. Don't rely on the screen. Go watch a tutorial. There's some really good ones out there about memorizing the button combinations and how to navigate and what they do. Learn the basic workflow like the back of your hand, and you will have a much better experience with this thing. When I first got it, I touched it for the first week or so, and then it kind of sat on the shelf for about a month. And then I was like, you know, I just spent $600 on this. What am I doing? I need to pick this up and learn it. And I did, and it has changed the game for me. So much so that I'm actually working on a full OPZ album. There'll be more details on that at the end of this month, which is June. So if you guys found value in this video, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and leave a like on the video. If not, you can leave a dislike. That's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings. Just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Right now, we're only 10 subscribers away from 800, so thank you guys so much for that. And yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.